This is the longest running construction project in the world. When I first learned that the Sagrada Familia has been under construction for 142 years and that it's the world's oldest construction project, two questions immediately came to mind. What makes this church so unique that it's taken so long to complete? I mean, the world's tallest tower, Burj Khalifa, was built in just 6 years. And finally, what kind of genius was Antoni Gaudí, the project's initial architect, that his design continues to baffle modern-day architects despite their access to the latest technology and construction machinery? What was his secret, and why are some people unhappy with how things are being handled at the Sagrada Familia today, and say that the church is straying from the Catalan architect's vision? This video is a deep dive into the life and career of one of the greatest innovators in history and his magnum opus, the Sagrada Familia, or the Holy Family. The Sagrada Familia is one of the world's most iconic landmarks. Located in Barcelona, this basilica is the brainchild of Antoni Gaudí, a visionary and eccentric Catalan architect of the late 19th century. Dismissed as a madman by his peers and society, Gaudí drew inspiration from nature and used rudimentary tools like chains and threads to create a design that has confounded even the architects of this era of computers and advanced construction machinery. The question is, how did he do it? How did he design and build a significant part of this intricate masterpiece 142 years ago? Ever since Gaudí's tragic death nearly a century ago, architects from around the world have tried to complete the project according to Gaudí's design. But critics argue that they have fallen short of realizing his intent.
Gaudí fue un ser genial. Hay muchas personas que nacen con los genes para ser un genio, pero el 99% acaban en un manicomio, porque ven el futuro, pero no saben transmitirlo a la sociedad.
No city looks quite like Barcelona. It has a distinct appearance, and no architect has left a more indelible mark on the city's landscape than Antoni Gaudí. His uniquely shaped and free-flowing structures are everywhere. They include Casa Batlló, which stands out for its whimsical, bone-like columns; Park Güell, renowned for its mosaic-covered benches and nature-inspired landscapes; and most famously, the Sagrada Familia, a church that has transcended both time and tradition. As though watched over by a divine force, the Sagrada Familia has withstood the collapse of empires, the rise and fall of nation-states, and 2 world wars, yet its construction is still ongoing. When the project's construction started in 1882, the telephone had yet to be invented, and most homes were lit with candles, oil lamps, and gas lights instead of electric bulbs. Today, architects use the latest technology like virtual reality (VR) and 3D printers to complete the church as soon as possible. And that, critics say, is a big problem. The project was initially assigned to a different architect named Francisco de Paula de Villar, but de Villar soon resigned due to technical disagreements over the cost of materials for the basilica's construction. At that time, Gaudí was 30 years old, having only graduated 4 years earlier with a degree in architecture from Barcelona School of Architecture. At school, Gaudí often didn't seem to care much about his classes. He would sometimes get Fs, but he knew that to officially become an architect and bring his imaginative ideas into reality, he had to have a degree. Gaudí completed his studies, and you know what the school's director said before handing him his degree? I really love what he said. "We have given this academic title either to a fool or a genius. Time will tell," he said. Before taking on the Sagrada Familia project, Gaudí's biggest architectural project was this warehouse designed for bleaching cotton just outside Barcelona. At first glance, the warehouse doesn't look special. It has a simple design, but if you're a historian, you would not say that. Look closer. Do you notice there are no columns supporting the ceiling for this relatively large hall? The reason is these wooden parabolic arches, which Gaudí invented, or at least used extensively in architecture for the first time. This paraboloid shapes allowed him to create a large open space without the need for columns to hold the roof. This type of arch would become a key feature of Gaudí's other prominent architectural projects. Today, Gaudí is regarded as the father of modern Catalan architecture. After completing the warehouse, Gaudí was entrusted with the Sagrada Familia. Now you may ask this question: how did he, as a young and relatively inexperienced architect, get the job and become the architect of a project as grand as the Sagrada Familia? There's a twofold answer to this question. Initially, the plan was not to build such an extraordinary church that would take more than a century to complete. Del Villar's plan was to build a church in the traditional Gothic style, similar to St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York, which was built in 20 years. Secondly, it was because of the project's financier, philanthropist Josep Maria Bocabella, who was a devout Catholic just like Gaudí. He was captivated by Gaudí's vision that building a church for the Holy Family must be perfect, and that the only possible way to achieve perfection was to build the project like a concrete representation of nature.
Entonces Gaudí se lo toma como muy interés y empieza a pensar, acaba la cripta, la parte de abajo que ha iniciado este arquitecto, y luego piensa en otra construcción diferente, mucho más grande, que no se sabe cuándo se acabará.
When asked to specify a date for the completion of the project, Gaudí would say, "My client is not in a hurry." By this, he meant that he was working for God, and that God had all the time in the world. Gaudí was someone who did not always fit in with society. People, including his colleagues, didn't always understand him. He wore simple clothes and was so passionate about his work that he would often sleep inside the Sagrada Familia. Experts say that Gaudí was influenced by Gothic Revival, Art Nouveau, and even Islamic architecture. But ultimately, they add, Gaudí ended up creating his own unique style. More specifically, what set Gaudí apart was his passionate imitation of nature in his designs. He believed that to create original and authentic work, one must return to nature, because he believed nothing was more perfect than nature. Gaudí's architectural creations are often viewed as tangible reflections of the natural world. He once said, "The great book, always open and which we should make an effort to read, is that of nature."
Sabía todo lo que aprendió, lo podía convertir en arte, en ciencia, y esa es la ventaja de él. Evidentemente, su origen siempre fue el estudio, trasladar la naturaleza a la arquitectura. Entonces Gaudí quiso trasladar todo, formas, estructuras, colores, de animales, de plantas, de interior. Él estudió anatomía de los huesos humanos, del interior de las personas, para trasladarlo a la arquitectura. Eso, hoy en día, centros de estudios de biomimesis estudian Gaudí por eso, cómo un ser en aquella época pudo trasladar no solo la forma, la estructura, las propiedades de físicas, químicas, a una arquitectura.
The Sagrada Familia is Gaudi's magnum opus, his single greatest masterpiece, where his view is best expressed. The church is divided into three facades: the Nativity, the Passion, and the Glory. The Nativity facade is the only part of the church completed during Gaudi's lifetime. It features 4 towers. Take a close look at the intricate details that Gaudí incorporated into the design. These details have been studied by experts in various fields, from architecture to art to religion. On the one side, you will see sculptures of sacred figures like Jesus Christ, Saint Joseph, and angels, while the design itself avoids the straight lines and sharp corners typical of other structures. Gaudí used to say, "The straight line belongs to men, the curved one to God." He'd also say, "There are no straight lines or sharp corners in nature. Therefore, buildings must have no straight lines or sharp corners." And he was right. Look around you. Have you ever seen natural straight lines or sharp corners? Have you ever seen a tree branch grow perfectly straight? Or caves, do they have sharp corners? Or does a river ever flow in a straight line? I think the best way to understand Gaudí's buildings is to see them as stories that are told in stone, glass, and iron. At the base of the columns here, for example, you see turtles, both land and sea turtles, as if Gaudí is trying to say, hey, look, even the mightiest structures need a solid, humble base, just like how these creatures carry their homes with grace. When I look at the Sagrada Familia and all the beautiful decorations, I simply see a painting made with building materials. Each twist, turn, and mosaic piece is about life. They paint moments of death, hope, disappointment, victory, and failure. It's like he's saying life is messy, beautiful, and full of meaning, just like these walls. He also seems to suggest that there is something bigger connecting us all. But do you know how tall these towers are? More than 100 meters. How did he manage to build them out of stone, ensuring that they don't crack or crumble under pressure? Gaudí studied nature scientifically to understand how elements like trees and their heights and bracing patterns, or caves and valleys, to understand how they manage to stand the test of time, surviving and enduring for hundreds, even thousands of years. To replicate nature's resilience in architecture, Gaudí applied geometric principles. But during Gaudí's time, experts say other architects didn't follow such a methodical approach, and that much of the innovation came from a process of trial and error.
Is a form, is not geometry, it's personality. And there are many problems for this. Para las piedras han tenido que hacerse 3 veces, todo es muy complicado porque no hay geometría. Entonces dice, no, aquí voy a hacer todo geometría.
One of the tools, for example, that Gaudí used to create geometric shapes was a chain. He would suspend it from 2 points and let it hang freely. The chain naturally formed a catenary curve under the influence of gravity. Gaudí would then place a mirror under the hanging chain to observe its inverted image. This process allowed him to understand how the chain's shape, governed by gravity, could be used to evenly distribute weight. The advantage of this method is that it provides a natural and efficient way to balance loads in his architectural designs. Now notice the difference. If you are to build an archway using this method, the weight of the stones above would be evenly distributed, reducing the risk of cracking or collapsing. But if you are to build this way, the weight might concentrate at the top and could lead to instability or even cause the structure to crumble.
Gaudí aquí aplica el concepto de las fuerzas de catenarias que le da el resultado, ¿no? Y entonces algunas columnas están inclinadas porque son mejores para la estabilidad. Entonces lo aplica aquí.
Gaudí used to create plaster models or prototypes of his designs before actually constructing them. He would then take pictures to ensure that others could complete the project after his passing. Not long after completing the Nativity facade, Gaudí met his tragic end. On a fateful day, June 10, 1926, while crossing the street, Gaudí was struck by a tram. His humble attire and unassuming appearance led passersby to mistake him for a beggar. Unrecognized, he was left lying on the road for some time. Eventually, a police officer identified him and helped him get to a hospital, but it was too late to save him. Gaudí died of his wounds. But this image tells a different story. It's from Gaudí's funeral, where the presence of thousands of mourners shows what a loved and esteemed figure he had become. He was laid to rest in the crypt of the Sagrada Familia, to which he dedicated most of his professional life. After Gaudí's death, the project faced several challenges. The worst came during the Spanish Civil War in the 1930s, during which many of Gaudí's models and plans were destroyed. The war was devastating, with estimates suggesting over 500,000 people died. But that bloody conflict did not kill the Sagrada Familia. Post-war, Gaudí's surviving sketches and drawings allowed architects to create this model and resume construction. The church is almost ready now. Inside, the Sagrada Familia feels like a forest. Come, check this out. Look at this column. Look how its shape changed as you go up, making it look like a tree trunk. And if you think these staircases look like seashells, you wouldn't be wrong. That was Gaudí's intent. The Sagrada Familia is more than just a church. It's a monument that attracts millions of visitors from around the world. Last year, the church sold nearly 5 million tickets to tourists, generating $137 million in revenue. Nearly half of that money was spent on completing the project.
My reaction is, wow, it's fantastic. The external is very, very beautiful, but
The exterior, yeah.
But the interior design is fantastic.
The thing that makes it for me is the color schemes of the windows and the way they change as they go around the building, and it's just so beautifully thought out.
I finally see personally the masterpiece of Gaudí. So yeah, it's hard to describe in words.
Today, engineers use modern technology like 3D printers, computer-aided design software like AutoCAD, stone cutting machines, and robots to continue the work. However, some historians harshly criticize the project, arguing that it has strayed from Gaudí's original vision and claim that the city officials are merely rushing to finish it for financial gain.
Frank Gehry, que es un arquitecto famoso de Guggenheim, dice: Hacer la Sagrada Familia no es difícil hoy en día digitalmente. Lo que es difícil es hacer el alma, el interior con el alma, el espíritu de Gaudí. Si ellos visitan la cripta de la Colonia Güell, en el interior aún conservan cristales de Gaudí que puedes ver el interior como tiene alma, es cálido. Gaudí creó un branding mundial, como Coca-Cola, conocido mundialmente. Pero lo creó no para sacar dinero, sino para transmitir conocimientos.
When completed, the Sagrada Familia will be 172 meters tall, making it the tallest church in the world. But it will still be shorter than the famous Montjuic Hill in Barcelona, because Gaudí believed that man's work should never surpass that of God's. Authorities say the project will be completed and inaugurated in 2026 to mark a century since Gaudí's death. Did anything about Gaudí's life stand out to you? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below. If you want to help us produce more inspiring stories of great innovators like Gaudí, please hit the like and subscribe buttons. Until next time, keep innovating. Thank you for watching.